I grew up in a part of Australia where fire wasn't really a thing. Floods, sure. Roads underwater, sandbags stacked in front of the school, but a fire? That was something that only happened on the news, usually somewhere far off. We never worried about smoke in the air or keeping a go bag by the door. Then, Dad got to work in Victoria. We moved down there right after Christmas, tripping over boxes well into the new year. The locals talked about the bushfires the way people back home talked about the weather. Calm, routine, just something you get used to. Total fire bans, high-risk days, stay or go plans were always in order. I didn't understand half of it. Mom kept telling us it was a good move. Better opportunities, she'd say, while pointing out a new shop or a new park. I found everything pretty boring myself, and I missed my friends back home. It was incredibly dusty out there too. Yellow grass in every direction, trees that grew away from the sun. Everybody around here seemed to have their own fire stories as well. A neighbor who once lost a shed. A man at the servo who mentioned a blaze years back that nearly took his cousin's house entirely. They didn't say it to scare us. It was just seasonal. Small talk, you know? We'd barely even started unpacking when the forecast for that weekend started showing up everywhere. High temperature, high winds, catastrophic fire danger, they announced on the radio. That didn't mean much to us. We didn't know the codes yet. We didn't understand how fast things could turn. I just remember Dad frowning at the sky on one February morning, traces of smoke on the horizon. It had an infamous name, Black Saturday. That morning felt weird from the start. The light through the windows was already tinted, and the air felt warm, even for summer. Dad had the radio running in the kitchen while Mom had moved around, glancing outside. Nobody was saying much. We didn't know enough to panic, but we could tell that day was not normal. The smoke was one thing, but all the traffic buzzing out of town caught our attention too. We thought there was going to be a fair going on or something. We didn't have an escape plan, and we never really needed one. Here, everybody else seemed to know what to do. Leave early, gas up, have bags ready. We were still figuring out where we kept half of our things. By late morning, the wind had picked up, and it wasn't the usual kind. This was a dry, pushing wind that did not let up. It kept rattling the fence and sending dust across the yard. My dad stepped out once or twice and came back smelling faintly like smoke. Again, no word was said, and looking back now, our house could have been on fire and we probably wouldn't even noticed. The first emergency warning came through around midday, a flat automated voice telling residents to prepare to leave immediately. That's when everything around us seemed to shift. Engines started up, people shouting across their yards. A few neighbors ran out carrying boxes and bags. I remember my mom gripping the counter and saying, "What do we grab? Just tell me what to grab." We didn't know. It was obvious that everybody that lived nearby was already privy to the evacuation order and had begun to trickle out on their own accord. When the official announcement came through, those that were waiting didn't waste any more time. They hit the road within minutes. My mom starts panicking, filling up laundry baskets with random things, photo albums, a jumper, a torch with half-dead batteries. None of it looked like survival gear. It was just stuff, whatever was nearest to her. When you pack up in a rush, suddenly everything seems important. The message then changed and the voice became more urgent.
If you have not evacuated, it may be already unsafe for you to do so. Shelter where you are until further notice.
It didn't really matter though. The road was now a gridlock of cars, slowly pushing out of town. Many gave up, pulling off the road and walking back to their houses. A few neighbors had already decided to stay. We could see them inspecting their properties, seeing what preparations they could make before the fire actually came through. "We're staying," Dad said quietly. "The road's done for." We didn't argue. It was clear that we were not going anywhere. The smoke thickened quickly, and it wasn't long before we could barely breathe. The sky dimmed until it looked like late afternoon now, even though it was early in the day. Ash drifted down onto the lawn, and you could actually feel the heat in the air, even without seeing direct flames. The whole neighborhood seemed to be a coal brick getting ready to ignite. Dad dragged out the hoses. "Wet everything down," he told me. He didn't sound panicked, just focused. Mom stayed inside, pacing, then came out and began helping as well. The water would steam when it hit metal surfaces too. It was like the place was already on fire. A few of our neighbors were doing the same. Mr. Hennessy across the road dug out this shallow line of dirt along the property edge. A couple with a baby stood on the roof with a hose. Nobody talked much. Everybody was insanely focused. I guess that's what survival does to us. The radio inside broke the quiet again. Another warning: evacuate if possible. If not, shelter immediately. Multiple structure fire reports. Mom shut it off halfway through, muttering, "We get it, we get it." She was coming apart at the seams. My dad then handed me a shovel. "Help me dig a break over here." The soil was so dry it barely gave way, but we worked anyway, the wind picking up and getting stronger, pushing smoke through the neighborhood in these huge black columns. Somewhere in the distance, something made this deep, heavy sound. It was like a freight train roaring throughout the area. "Dad, do you hear that?" I asked him. "Yes," he said. "Keep digging." "What is it?" He looked at me for a split second. "It's the fire." Despite the agonizing heat, my skin immediately went cold. How could a fire be so loud? A few houses over, somebody was yelling they could see flames, and more voices would follow. Somewhere beyond that, I could hear the repetitive sound of shattering glass. Dad said it was windows bursting from the heat pressure. Mom stepped outside again, her phone in hand. "They're telling people to leave now, on foot if they have to." She sounded like she'd gone completely insane. "We can't stay here." My dad looked at the road, still packed and still unmoving, but nodded along. "We'll find a way. We've done all we can for the house." Leaving felt strange, very vulnerable. We spent that whole morning trying to protect our home and fortifying it. Then suddenly we were just abandoning it. But the heat was getting stronger. The smoke was getting lower. Staying was no longer an option. We took each other's hands and slung a pack with snacks, water, and the bare essentials, and followed one another off into the smoke. We snaked along this narrow back trail behind our neighborhood. The air felt heavier the further we went, almost feeling like it was pressing down on us. I remained close to my parents, head down, breathing through my shirt when the smoke hit too hard. My legs felt shaky beneath me, but we kept moving. Halfway up the hill, I turned around to take a look. The edge of the neighborhood glowed a deep, angry red. Fire moved fast between the yards, pushed by the wind. Embers lifted up into the air and then scattered like sparks from a grinder. One house had flames climbing up its siding already. A car caught fire with a dull flash, and somebody from across our neighborhood was screaming the same name over and over and over. "We have to keep going," Dad said, pushing lightly at my shoulder. We climbed the rest of the way, and at the top, the view opened up and everything looked worse than I even expected. From above, the town no longer even looked familiar. Large sections were swallowed up in thick smoke, with flames running through them in these uneven lines. Trees were bending under the heat, like invisible hands were smashing them. A roof then collapsed in the heat of the inferno, and more flames exploded out of it. The fire didn't look like a wave or a wall. It was shapeless, formless, incomplete. It was a starving essence that consumed everything in its wake. Mom put her hand over her mouth, and Dad didn't say anything. Standing there, all I could think was how quickly our normal morning had just turned into all this, how unprepared we really were. Beyond my thoughts, all I could hear was the sound of the fire, the sirens, and 1,000 barking dogs going crazy along the chaos. The fire continued moving straight toward where our house was. From the hilltop, we stayed where we were. The heat had reached us even from that distance, like there was this giant blow dryer out there. Ever so often, a fresh gust of wind would send another wave of smoke rolling upward, and we had to turn our faces away. My mom kept asking, "Do you think the house is gone?" My dad never answered her. He just kept watching, hands on his hips, jaw set. He was like Superman that morning, cool, calm, and collected. We weren't the only ones up there either. A few families from nearby properties stood scattered across the ridge, each one of them staring down into the valley. Parents held their kids close, and somebody sat on a rock, head buried in their hands. Nobody spoke because what could anybody really say? At some point, the fire crews arrived on the main road far beneath us. Their trucks looked so small from where we were standing. You could see their hoses arcing water, but compared to that fire, it was nothing. Still, the sight of people down there, people who knew what they were doing, gave my child brains some form of comfort. The afternoon dragged on and the smoke thinned and then thickened again. It was hard to tell where areas were burning and what areas were just covered in smoke. The sun eventually dipped behind the haze, which made the hot spots a lot easier to see. There were fire crews scrambling throughout that entire inferno. When the wind finally shifted, it was nice and subtle. The flames bent away from our section of town. The noise faded a little bit. A firefighter on the lower road waved his arms, signaling for some kind of change in how they were fighting the fire. I think my dad then exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. "We'll head back when it's safe," he said. "Give them some time to work." It was nearly evening when we finally got the all clear to return, and even then, it was just to get clothes and personal items. We had to leave again. Walking throughout our neighborhood didn't even feel real anymore. Parts of it were still smoking, yards were scorched. A few houses were gone entirely, reduced to piles of twisted metal and ash. Cars sat burnt out in driveways, tires melted into the pavement. Somehow, our house was still there. Smoke-stained, gutters warped, glass blackened but still standing. Dad had left the hoses on and flooded the yard. The firemen said that was a huge help when they fought the flames inside our area too. My mom kissed the front door and then collapsed to the ground. A few doors down where my friend's house had been, there was nothing left. Just piles of ash where their entire life used to be. Seeing that was really worse than the fire itself. It made everything feel personal. We were lucky, but others weren't. Even years later, when somebody brings up that day, the first thing I remember isn't the flames or the smoke. It's standing on that hill, convinced that we'd be returning to nothing. By the time the sirens went off in Joplin that Sunday, I already knew the sound by heart. Back then in 2011, I was a junior in high school and thought I'd seen every kind of Midwest storm there was. Hail the size of golf balls, thunder that rattled the windows, clouds that stacked up on each other like skyscrapers. We all grew up under severe weather warnings. They showed up on the TV so often that they were background noise. If you jumped every time a weatherman said to take cover, you never leave your basement. Usually when the sirens sound, you'll find neighbors drinking a beer in their driveway rather than taking shelter anywhere else. That particular morning felt like any other one. Heavy air, low clouds, but nothing you didn't see every other late spring. A few of us drove out to the sports field on the edge of town to get in some practice for the next season. Me, Tyler, Chase, and the twins, Evan and Eli. We met there almost every single Sunday, running through drills, talking trash, seeing how we stacked up against one another. "Radar says there's a tornado watch," Tyler said when he climbed out of his car, waving his phone around. "We're all gonna die." "Well, you better put your cleats on then," I told him. I'd still have time to run. We all laughed, because that's how it was. Sirens usually just meant keep an eye out, not you're about to be split in half. The field sat on the edge of town, where the farm fields gave way to prairie and scattered trees. You could see the highway, the Walmart sign, and beyond that, layered clouds pressing down on the horizon. If there was evidence of danger, it wasn't obvious. We took to the field and threw the ball around for a few hours. Routine stuff, nothing crazy. But it was distracting enough that we took our eyes off the sky. We were taking a water break when the siren split, that long rising wail that wasn't the usual heads-up tone. It was urgent, and I'll be damned if it didn't go on forever. All of us froze, staring at one another. Chase checked his phone first. "Emergency alert, there's already one touchdown." The twins' phones buzzed in unison, missed calls and texts from their parents. Tyler answered his. "Yeah, we hear it. We're leaving now." He hung up with a pale face. "Guys, we need to go." We turned toward the western sky, and that's when we saw it, wide, rotating, drawing itself down from the clouds, thickening as it touched the horizon. Even from the field, we could see debris swirling around at the base. The wind shifted, and we could actually feel the vacuum, even from all those miles away. "Holy shit," Chase said. No one else had any more commentary. We quickly grabbed up our gear and tossed it into Tyler's SUV. He had the only vehicle big enough for everybody. Doors then slammed, seatbelts snapped, and he hit the gas. Looking around, I remember noticing there was nobody else on the road, not on the street. Half the town had gotten into shelter while we ran blue 42s on the football field. The YMCA, I said. 10 miles brick building." Tyler nodded at me and then punched it. The rain hit next, big scattered sheets that took away all vision through the windshield. The SUV shook as wind hammered at the rear end. The windshield wipers moved back and forth, but it came in so heavily and at such these odd angles, it was useless. "Dude, can you even see?" Eli yelled. "Barely," Tyler said, leaning forward. I watched him go pasty white in just half a second. Then the noises started, stuff hitting the car, small things at first, and heavier thuds that made all of us jerk in our seats. I turned around to check the funnel, and my stomach dropped. "It's behind us, dude, what the fuck?" Everybody twisted to look. Through the rain-smeared back window, the tornado was way bigger now, fully formed and chasing us. Behind it, houses and cars were vanishing into the rotated wall of debris. The entire horizon looked like it had been through a paper shredder. "Go, go!" Chase shouted. "I thought we were driving away from it," Eli then asked. "The road turns back into town. We drove right fucking into it," Tyler screamed to the windshield. He then pressed the pedal to the floor. The engine groaned. The whole SUV rattled from the pressure fluctuations in the air. It made the engine feel like it was going to die in the moment. A piece of something, maybe a mailbox, then slammed into the side of the SUV. The car jolted and started fishtailing. Tyler didn't speak. His jaw was locked, eyes bulging out of his head, glued to the road that he could no longer see. Trees along the roadside bent until their branches scraped the pavement. Some snapped and skidded across the road. The roar behind us grew so loud we couldn't even hear each other anymore. "We're not gonna make it," Chase said. "No, we are," I said, almost entirely to myself. "Just go, man, go." We hit a stretch of open road, and through the blur the YMCA came into view, squat brick and the only solid thing left in the landscape. A few cars were already parked outside. Figures waved at us frantically from the basement entrance. They were the first people that we'd seen since the alert went off. I remember my eyes filling up with tears the second that I saw them. "We're almost there," Tyler then breathed out. The wind lifted the SUV's rear wheels an inch off the ground. I felt it, weightless for a heartbeat, and everybody shrieked. Tyler swerved into the parking lot. He slammed the brakes and we piled out before the car fully stopped. The wind shoved us sideways as we ran, falling ass over elbow. We ate shit 3 or 4 times before the guys at the door caught us and hauled us down the stairs. "Get in, now!" they yelled at us. We tumbled down those concrete steps to find dozens of other people. It was suffocating, packed tight, and the guys at the top yanked that basement door shut and cut off what little light and air that they allowed. And then they packed in behind us. A generator grumbled somewhere, filling the basement with a weak yellow glow. Almost 100 people were crammed inside. Families, elderly folk, teenagers just like us. Everybody pressed in close to the support columns or tucked away in the corners. There's lots of crying, praying, people trying to get cell service. We grabbed each other by the shoulder like we would on the field and followed each other to a place that allowed us a little room in the back. The ground beneath us began to vibrate like something was rising up beneath our feet, deep rolling pulses that felt like they were coming from inside the earth. A tornado was about to pass over us. Everything turned into chaos, metal tearing, wood exploding, the building's skin peeling off brick by brick. Dust rained down on us from the floorboards, which whistled under the pressure. The temperature in the room dropped. A woman nearby whispered to their kids to hold on, over and over. A huge crash thundered overhead. Something big collapsed and everybody screamed. We all kind of grabbed at each other for a second, expecting the sky to suddenly appear overhead. I remember thinking in the moment that I was on the Titanic or something. There was nowhere to run, no way to fight it. Just crouched down and listened to the world disintegrate right above me, minute after minute, hoping it didn't pop the building open like a tuna can and kill us all in the blink of an eye. Time became glacial. It could have been 10 minutes or even an hour. All we knew was that tornado wasn't done yet, and we were directly under it. Eventually, the noise settled, replaced with something else. I couldn't tell what it was, something akin to flowing water. A few people then lifted their heads and somebody asked, "Is it over?" Nobody moved for a really long time. One of the older men near the door said, "We'll check." 5 of them went, looked like farmers, stood up and then worked the chain from around the handles, then eased the latch. When they pushed, that door didn't budge though. "Debris," one of them said. "A lot of it. Might be 1,000 pounds holding it shut." They tried once more and the hinges groaned. Dust shook loose from the frame. They took a breath and tried once more. On their 4th shove, the door cracked open just an inch, enough to let in the cold air and the smell of ozone. "Again," somebody said. "Again!" Chase screamed, and then he ran over to help. They pushed in this steady rhythm, rocking the door until it finally opened wide enough to squeeze through. The men then climbed out first, gestured for the rest of us to follow. We filed up the steps one at a time, totally unsure of what we were about to find. It was actually kind of scary to watch them slip through. When we came out, there was nothing left. The YMCA was gone. Not damaged, not blown over. There was nothing left of it. The entire top portion had been scraped off the earth. The parking lot was filled with pieces of roof, bricks, twisted metal, things you couldn't even identify. The cars outside were unrecognizable. Some flipped over. One was suspended in the branches of an old oak tree. We all just stood there, staring at the flattened ground where a building used to be. We were in shock and also thankful to be alive. Across the road, the neighborhood was leveled. House frames were ripped open. Some were reduced to piles of timber. Dogs wandered throughout the wreckage. Birds picked at the debris with oddly calm movements. And further out, electrical lines snapped in spat blue arcs along that hillside. Chase said, "We shouldn't be alive." And he was right. If we left the building a minute later, if the SUV had stalled just once, if any doors had jammed, we would not have made it. That thought stayed with me long after we left that basement. Not the tornado itself, not the debris, not even the silence after it all. Just the distance between us and the people who didn't get those 60 seconds. I was just a kid when Hurricane Charlie hit, I think 5 or 6. Too young to understand what it meant when adults used the word Category 4. All I knew was that we were very poor, and poor families didn't really evacuate. We stayed put because there wasn't anywhere for us to go. It was me, my brother Danny, and our parents inside this small beat-up house at the end of a quiet street. My dad would work odd jobs. Mom held down the house. Everything that we owned could fit in the back of a pickup. When the warnings came over the TV, neighbors packed their cars and left. Dad watched through our blinds, white as a ghost. "Are we going too, Dad?" I asked him. "Nope," he said to me. "If we go, there'll be nothing here when we get back." My mom wanted to leave, but she didn't really push it. She went along with boarding up the place. She handed Danny and me the old planks from behind the shed. Dad dug out his tools. To us, it felt like almost fun in the moment, like we were building a fort or something. Danny held the boards while Dad would drill. I got to hammer a few nails and I bent every single one of them too. Inside the house, lights all but vanished. The walls now felt a little closer, and I remember thinking it felt like hiding inside a blanket fort, the kind Danny and I used to make inside our living room. Nobody really explained the danger to us either. Nobody sat me down and said, "We might not make it through the night." They just told us to stay close, to listen, and be ready. At that age, I didn't understand fear the way the adults did, but I could tell there was something coming for us. That first real sign of things getting bad was the garage door. It didn't creak or bend or show any warning. It just blew inward, with a crash that shook the whole house. One second it was closed, the next it was folded in half like a piece of paper. We all instinctually knew what had happened, the level of impact, the sound, and where it come from. We didn't need to see it to know what had happened. Dad then yelled for us to get to the kitchen. Mom grabbed our cat, this mean old thing named Pickles that barely let anybody touch her, and then shoved us all toward the center of the house. The kitchen had no windows, no exterior walls, just cabinets, the stove, and a heavy table. We sat underneath it, huddled under a blanket, trembling as fear as the world washed away around us. The wind picked up until it sounded like the whole house was being peeled apart. Every few minutes, something slammed up against the walls, branches, trash cans, parts of neighbors' roofs. The pressure in the air kept popping our ears too. Danny and I stayed close to Mom. Pickles shook so hard I could feel her teeth chattering. She didn't claw or hiss, just pressed herself into my chest, like she was trying to hide inside my skin. I held her and rubbed her ears to calm her down. I remember leaning in close and whispering that I love you, I love you, I love you for almost an hour, until she finally quit shaking and started purring. We stayed like that forever. Dad paced between the kitchen and the hallway, checking the roof for any cracks. The noise was so loud, it felt like the house was breathing. And then, suddenly everything just kind of stopped. The silence was oddly deafening after so much noise. Dad opened up the door to the hallway slowly, like he expected something to come pouring out of it, but there was nothing. The air outside was pale and strange, like early morning, except the sky looked kind of washed out, and it was late in the evening. It was the eye of the storm. "We need to check the garage," Dad said, "and the yard. We've only got a short window." Mom nodded and started cleaning the water that had pushed into the garage. Dad grabbed up a bucket, trying to salvage tools that were floating in the mess. Danny and I slipped in the back door to check out the fence, mostly just to feel the fresh air again. Our yard was like a swamp, palm fronds that were everywhere. The fence had collapsed into two places, and there wasn't much that we could do to fix it. We propped up one of the posts with wood and rocks, but it was temporary at best. And that's when we heard the whining. It was faint just beyond the fence. Danny moved toward it, and I followed him around a pile of branches, expecting to see maybe a cat or a raccoon. But it was a dog. A medium-sized brown mutt with a torn collar, mud all over its fur. One of its legs were dragging painfully. Its whole body was shivering, making it obvious it had been outside during the hurricane. Its eyes were wide and glassy, but it didn't growl or try to run. Danny crouched to inspect it. "That's Mr. Baker's dog," he said. "Max, the one who always barks at us." Max was not barking now. He barely moved except for the trembling. Danny slid his arms under the dog's belly and lifted carefully. Max whimpered but didn't fight him. When Danny handed him to me, the dog pressed his head into my armpit, the same way that Mr. Pickles had. We carried him across the yard to what remained of the street. A piece of somebody's roof was sticking out of the bushes, and the road was full of debris. Mr. Baker's house was 2 doors down. Part of his roof was missing. He was up on a ladder, trying to tack down a tarp, smoking a cigarette all the while. Danny called out to him, "Mr. Baker, we found Max." He froze, looked down, and nearly fell off the ladder trying to get to us. He jogged across the wrecked yard, teetering on full-blown tears. "Oh my God," he said. "I thought he was gone. Thank you. Thank you." Max looked at his chin, tail tapping, going crazy at the sight of his old man. They had their own teary-eyed reunion as if we weren't even there. And then he looked back at us. "You boys saved him. You hear me? You saved my dog. He got out right when the storm hit and I couldn't catch him. After 5 hours of all that crazy shit, I figured there was no way he made it. And if he did, he'd come home. He looks like he's hurt his leg," Danny explained. "He'll be okay. Thank you, you two. Thank you." Danny shrugged. I didn't say anything. I felt like I was going to cry. Mr. Baker then carried Max inside. Danny and I headed back home. The sky above us stayed quiet as the clouds churned into the next storm front. When we got back to the back door, Mom was wringing out a towel. Dad was tossing the boards he replaced into a pile. They both looked exhausted. "The fence will have to wait," Dad said. "The storm's coming back any minute now." And he was right. We barely made it, maybe 10 steps from the door, before the wind picked up again, soft at first and right back to its full force gales, like it had never even let up at all. Everything outside disappeared, the walls groaned, the pressure, and we climbed under the table without another word. I thought back to Mr. Baker, his open roof, his flimsy tarp, and that poor dog hiding off in the dark. The second half of the storm was way worse than the first. The pressure made my teeth hurt. The house shook as if we were in an earthquake. At one point, we heard something crack 4 or 5 times, and Dad muttered, "That's not good," under his breath. "What was it?" Danny asked him. "Probably a tree or maybe a power line." We all took a breath and then held it. Which was worse, getting crushed or some kind of electrical fire? Pickles hit up my lap again, and we settled in for the long haul. It really felt like the walls would come apart this time too. When the storm finally passed us, we were asleep on our feet. The wind was gone, but we could hear a constant beating of rain. Dad opened up the front door and stood there for a long time before any of us stepped out. The street in front of us looked like something out of a disaster movie. Not a single tree was standing. Fences were flattened, pieces of siding and insulation scattered across the lawns. Everything you can imagine littered the neighborhood. Grills, gas cans, rubber hoses, plastic pools. Everything was plastered with mud. No one else was outside, no cars, no emergency crews, no nothing. And it stayed that way for most of the day. The power was out, the water was out. I think Dad checked the faucets once and then never bothered with it again. We didn't have either one for 10 or 12 days. Mom went through the pantry and lined everything out on the counter. Her couponing habit was actually the only reason we had enough to work with. Stacked of canned beans, soups, vegetables, chili. She took her time looking at the labels, counting quietly. She had no idea how long she would need to ration for. Later that afternoon, my dad handed me a shovel, said we needed a fire pit. The ground was soft from the rain, so digging really didn't take that long. We filled the bottom with rocks, then broke apart an old chair for dry wood. To me, it felt like we were camping. I didn't connect any of it with survival. I didn't even realize we needed that fire pit to heat food and boil water. It was going to keep us alive for the next 2 weeks. Nothing outside was dry, so we burned our own furniture. Mom heated canned food inside the coal bed. We boiled water every morning. Cups lined the counter next to the sink that had zero purpose. Danny and I helped clear trash from every yard in the neighborhood. There were stray dogs wandering in every direction. Cats would come after them. We saw dead birds in gutters, and a man down the street sat on his steps staring at what used to be his roof. A family pulled ruined furniture into their own lawn and slept in their front yard. People were walking in a daze, not sure what to do next. At night, we would sleep in the kitchen because it felt safer than the rest of the house. The other rooms had just taken way too much damage. By the time the crews finally reached our area and utilities came back, our lives had already shifted. The cleanup lasted months, but the 10 days without power stayed sharper in my memory than anything else that came after. We were primitive when they found us out there. We were in the middle of becoming something else entirely. People will talk about Hurricane Charlie in numbers, how strong it was, how much it cost, how long it took to rebuild. But I remember the simpler things. Holding a shaking cat, carrying a hurt dog across a wrecked yard, Mom sorting up cans like they were the last ones on Earth, and all of us huddled around a hole in the ground. And looking back now, I think we did everything right.